Okay, so here's using some technology to do all our calculations for us for linear regression, and it's this linest or linear estimation function in pretty much all spreadsheets. They copied it here from Microsoft Excel, and the way I get documentation is I usually just go to something like Google. Type in Excel and then the command I want, and it often comes up with this Microsoft support. And so here, and then I can see the description of what it's doing. I can do a single variable or many variables, and then we have the syntax of how it's written. So notice it's linest, and then the y values, then the x's, then whether I want a y-intercept or set it equal to 0, and then whether I want the full complement of statistics that it can give. And it explains what those things are. Then it talks about the output, standard error values and so forth, all that. Degrees of freedom, sum of squares, regression, and so forth. And then here it shows you how it's laid out. So I've taken that. So notice it's 5 rows by 2 columns if I just have one slope and an intercept. And so then if I go to Excel and here I have some data, some X and some Y, and what I have here is my 5 by 2 space, and then on the sides I've put what we have here. So here's beta, here's alpha. We have the standard error of beta, the standard error of alpha, the r squared, the standard error of the y's. We have the Fstatistic, the degrees of freedom, the sum of the squares of the model, and the sum of the squares of the residual. Down here I'll calculate some more things. The formulas are already there, but I've got nothing up here, so it's giving me errors. So to fill that in, this is a vector command, and so I'll just say equals linear estimation there, and then it tells me go get the y values first, comma, get the x values, comma. Now if it's for the intercept, if I want 0, it'll be calculated through the origin, or otherwise I'll allow an intercept. So 1 will allow an intercept. And then do I want all the stats, all those, all these 5, well actually 10 items in there? Yes, I do. Close that and then Control Shift and Enter, and there I have it. So I have the slope, the intercept, and standard errors and so forth. So now I can calculate my t-statistic to determine a p-value on the slope or on the intercept. Again, I don't tend to worry a great deal about the intercept. I either want to fix it at 0 because I have a very particular model in mind, or I don't care whether it's 0 or not, and so I don't really pay much attention to it. But if you're really wondering, might I want it to be 0? You can always put it in and then look at things like the p-value for it being 0 or not 0. and so forth. So to get the t-statistic, all I need to do is simply take the absolute value of my slope divided by the standard error, and that gives me my t-statistic. And so I do that, and of course I do the same thing in column E for the intercept. So pretty straightforward. Then to get the p-value, that's a t-distribution, and so I just say equals t-dist here of that t-statistic. But then I need the degrees of freedom, and I get that right here from the model. And then I want a two-sided test because it's either equal to 0 or not equal to 0. And so I do that, and I end up with a p-value, which is pretty much 0, 10 to the negative 6th. So 2.65 times 10 to the negative 6th. And so definitely I would say that the slope appears to be not 0, and so there does appear to be a dependency between the x and the y. Similarly, I get a p-value of 0.015. So, if I had to go with, if I'm really trying to decide whether the intercept should be 0 or not, I guess I'd go with not 0, because I get a 0.015 here, something below 0.05. And but again, I don't tend to worry greatly about that. Now I can compute my confidence interval. Typically I want a 95% confidence interval. I could always change that. So to get my confidence interval, I need my lower and upper bounds. Well, so I start with beta. So there's beta, D1. And then I need plus or minus. So plus for the upper bound, minus for the lower bound. Plus or minus the t value corresponding to a 95% confidence interval. So there I've got the 0.095, and the right number of degrees of freedom, so the 7, and then times the standard error. Okay, so that's my confidence interval. Now, if I had a big sample, 30 or more, I could use, instead of the t, I could use a normal, but it doesn't really matter. I can always use the t even for very large samples, so I'll just always use the t value here. And so there's my lower limit on my confidence. And, really because that p-value is so small and the standard error is so small, pretty much it says, yeah, that slope appears to be right around 1.55, because that standard error just wasn't very big. And even here on the intercept, when I did the same thing, not much change in that interval, so it's really right around 2. Okay, so that is the typical thing you would do with the linear regression. However, we can also go ahead, and we've got an F statistic here, and so I can get a p-value using F, and if I do things correctly, whatever I get here, whoops, well, I probably should have just clicked once. Whatever I get here for this, either, a single slope, whether I use an intercept or not, for a single slope linear regression, this value and this value should match. Now, how did I get the p-value using the F statistic instead of the t? Well, I use an F distribution, I use the F value, the F statistic, and my first number of degrees of freedom is 1 always. In this case, it's the number of slopes I'm using. Well, I have 1 slope. And then the degrees of freedom here from the problem. And notice I get the same answer. And once again, where does this F come from? Well, it's the sum of the squares of the model divided by the sum of the squares of the residual times the degrees of freedom. So we can check that. I'll just put it right over here. So equals, and so I'll take the degrees of freedom times the sum of the squares of the model divided by the sum of the squares of the residuals, and you see there's the 186.669. So that is indeed where it comes from, but they calculate it for us, so I don't need to. And so there we go. There is a basic linear regression. I could excuse me, I could also get the predicted values. So for instance, down here I could say here's X and here's Y hat. So predicted values. Let me center all those. So I'm just going to copy these down here, and then here for my Y hat, well, it's just the model here, so I would take equals my slope. So there's the slope. Now I'm going to copy down, so I need to put a $sign on that 1. And then times my X value plus my Y-intercept. And again, I'm going to copy down, so I'll need to put a $sign on that 1. And there's my predicted value. And I can pull those all down. And oh, I'm not sure what that is. But at any rate, there is my predicted value for each of these. I could create my residuals. All right, so Y hat minus Y. And so that would be equal to this minus that. And so there are my residuals. So that was easy enough to get those. And I guess I want to center that as well. Now I could even check my various sums of squares, where I could get the sum of squares of the residuals and check that that is indeed 5.40 and so forth by just taking the squares of these and summing them up. I could get a Y bar and check that with some of the squares of the model and so forth. So I can do all that. Now I can also make a plot of everything. I could make a plot in here. So let me do that. I'm going to start with the data. So I'm just going to highlight that and insert a scatter plot. So chart type is a XY scatter. And I'll just finish that to start with. Made it really big. So I'm going to, there we go. make it much smaller. And so I have that. There are my data. And then now the question is, what do I want to add for my line? Well, I can toss in my predictions. So the y hats. So I could go in here and go to my data ranges and insert, add another, and the name. I'll come out here. I'll call it y hat. And then the x values, I could use those same x values. I could use the ones here. I'll use the ones I already have here. And then the y values. Actually, I probably didn't want to, let me go back to the x values. I probably didn't want to add in the label there, so I'll do that. And then the y values are coming from here. And I say OK. And so I can see them that way. Now within Excel, if I want to actually add the function, probably the easiest way in most of these spreadsheets is to click on your actual data and insert a trend line and linear, and then I could say show the equation and say OK. And notice they get the same answer I got because they're using the same thing. And then I can mess with things to make it look better and so forth. So there so I can format it and all that to get a nice picture. So that's, once I do all my regression, I can get a nice picture this way. Now, I don't really feel like Excel does very good graphics. So what I might do is go here and go to Desmos if I'm going to plot it, and so I'll add the data. So I'll start with, well, oops, I don't want the labels. I'll just start with those data. And actually, probably what I want to do is I will copy that. So I'll do a Control-C and paste it here. And then I'm going to copy this, Control-C. Now I'm going to do a paste special and just paste the numbers. And now I'm going to highlight all three of those so that when I paste it here, Control-V, I get both of them, and it just gave me names. Now I can go in and rename these, so I could call this Y, and I use an uppercase because it's not good to try to use lowercase x and y. I could do a subscript and then say hat, like that. I can go back here and call this Y if I want, and I can call that uppercase X if I want. So there are my data, and Here, I should be able to get that same line. We can check, but I should be able to get that same line if I say y and tilde, and I can do like an mx plus b, so m uppercase x plus b. And there it gave me the line. Notice it goes right through the blue data. And so I can get that line that way, and so I can make a much nicer plot. I can get rid of that part. I can zoom around on stuff. And even here, I can add various text and labels if I want to. There are various ways I could do that. For instance, if I wanted to add a label here, kind of like my labels with the others, I could put a point at, let's say I'll put a point here at, what is that, 1 and 18. So 1 comma 18, and there's a point. Now that's a blue one. Well, I'll put a point now at 1 comma 16. I'm just curious. Oh, isn't that interesting? So it gave me the blue and the green. Now actually I'd rather have the green first. So I could do one of two things. Since I got lucky and got these same colors, I could just change that to a 16 up here and change this to an 18 down here. But what if I got an orange and so forth? Well, I can go here and I can change that color to a green, and I can change that color to a blue or any other color I would like, and say done. Now I can add a label to the 18, and right now it says 1 and 18, but I'd prefer it to say something like y data. And then I can label this one, and I would prefer it to say something like y underscore hat prediction. Okay, so I can do that. And now I'd really actually rather have them beside the labels. And I believe, again, if I go here and I click here, notice, whoops, I have some positioning things. I also have some size stuff and so forth. So here's the label A. It says 1. What if I made that a 2? Whoa, that's really big. So maybe a 1.5. And then I have various positions, and I'm going to put it there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the blue one. And so I'm going to make that a 1.5 and put it here. And so I have that. And then I also can, I could label the line, I guess. And so let's see, so I'll say done. Now I could, I guess, I don't really have a great way. I could make a line. That would take a little work. But I'm probably okay if I just did another point and did this as, 1 and 14. Now see, that came up purple. I would like it red, like the line, and label. And now I want to put this in here. And there's actually a way to take these specific numbers and get them to show up in here. That's a good question as to how. I think I'd have to look that up. But I am going to try doing it in nice mathematical notation, or with make it look more mathy. And I think, I guess I have to look. So let me try looking really quickly. And I do this partly so, it's not a mystery what I do. I look up something like Desmos, and then I'm going to put dynamic labels, and I'll just go on the first one. And here they're showing me a bunch of stuff. Dynamic labels. Oh, there it was. It was, okay, they used single quotes and a $sign on the M and the B. So let me try that. Okay, so they said single quote, then Y equals a $sign and parentheses M, and then X plus $sign parentheses B, single quote, and I'll hit enter. Enter. Well, that didn't do it. So I thought they did a single quote. I might have to go back and look. Maybe it was a double quote. No. So we go back here and look. Maybe if I do a Control plus and make this much bigger. Oh, those are not parentheses, they're curly braces. And that still, though, looks like a single quote, but it might be a double quote. So let's see what happens if I go to the single. Whoops, I'm not sure what just happened. Stay on page. Shift. Okay, so this is a little slow, but you see this is what you have to do if you want to experiment, and so those made it work as far as the numbers. Okay, that's great. Now I still didn't get the nice typesetting of the Y and X looking more mathy. So let me try that single quote again. No. And it's just showing the single quote. And so I'll just punt and get rid of that. And there we go. Okay, so that looks okay. Now again though, I want to go in here. I need to make it red. I want to make it 1.5, and I need to put it at the end. And so there, and then I could see I could do that and get a nice wide picture, and that looks way better than the Excel version. Okay, so I could do a screenshot of that, and I think this looks pretty nice. Okay, so that coming back to what the heck we did, we got all this I tried doing a plot here in Excel. I think it's kind of ugly, and so I went here. Oh, and one more thing we can do, if I create my line this way, I can, if it says residuals here, and hit plot, and so I could plot the residuals. Now they're all in red as well, and so that becomes, well, okay, what could I do to try to fix that somehow? Good question. Not sure. I mean, I can add another point here and call it residuals in red, but there's the dots and there's the line. Whoops. I don't know if there's any easy way to do this other than so the way I could turn that into a line is I could insert another table. Whoops, I gotta say done here. Insert, I'll go here and insert a table, and that I will go, probably what I want to do is go from like maybe 0.5, whoops, 0.5 to 1, and do 14 and 14. Okay, so now you see I've got that, and what I'll end up doing is messing with this label here, and I can, again, I can change the color here, but I can do a little more. So here I can go here and say, oh, I want lines, I want a solid line, and I think okay, so what I'll do, see the line I've got a thickness, but the points I also have a size here, 0.1, and so I have that. Now that's a red dot, if I made that dot smaller, I could also do that and make it green. Well, actually, I guess I want those red, but make that 0.1. Okay, come back down here, make this red, and I'm not sure what just happened to my, we'll see here. Okay, but notice I now have a line there, and then I could add another point for the residuals. So let me say done. And yeah, I'm not sure what just happened here. So let's go back and look at this. Well, let me set that back up to 0.9. So you see there can be, so that's nice and big. So I made that big. So let's say done for the moment. And turn that off. Now, notice what happened was that moved it a little closer in. And so I could always move this to like 1.2, maybe 1.3. And so now I've got that, and now I could add the residuals. And so there I've got my line. So it took a bit, but it's not that much to do it. And then I could go here and add my point at 1 and 12. My label, residuals, and again edit that, make it red, make that 1.5 and put it there and say done. And now I think I have something. So what a nice plot for this straight line. Okay, so there we go. And again, I can save it, so I can always come back to it. So if I want to, if I forget how I did such a thing, so I'll call this math 3203 and maybe a least squares plot. And there we go. Okay, I think that is plenty.